The air conditioning in the glass-walled conference room hummed, but it did nothing to cool the burning heat rising in my face. I sat at the long mahogany table, my hands clasped tightly in my lap to keep them from shaking. Across from me, Tom Ridgely, my boss for the last 5 years, stood with a false tight smile plastered on his face. Next to him sat Chase, his 24-year-old son, who was leaning back in his chair with an arrogance that made my stomach churn. The HR representative, a quiet woman named Karen, refused to make eye contact with me, staring intently at her notepad. "Mara," Tom said, his voice smooth and dismissive, "we've decided to make a slight pivot regarding the leadership of the Meridian project. Effective immediately, Chase will be stepping in as the lead." I blinked, sure I had misheard him. The transfer papers were already signed. The project, an $18 million contract I had spent 6 months building from scratch, was my ticket out of this department. I watched in horror as Tom slid the thick blue binder, the one containing every detail of my work, across the table toward Chase. "This is a chance for real leadership," Tom continued, patting his son on the shoulder. "Chase needs the exposure." Chase smirked, flipping the binder open. He stared at the pages, but I could tell he wasn't actually reading. He was pretending. He looked up at me, a lazy grin on his face. "Thanks, Mara," Chase said, his voice loud in the quiet room. He tapped a page with his finger. Where's the revenue section again?" A heavy silence filled the room. HR flinched visibly at Chase's question. It was a basic question, one that anyone who had spent even 5 minutes on the project should have known. I opened my mouth to speak, to point out the absurdity of the situation, but Tom cut me off with a sharp wave of his hand. "Now, Mara," Tom said, his tone dropping to something patronizing. "I can see you're getting upset. Let's not be emotional and reactive about this. It's a business decision." I felt like I had been slapped. Emotional? I was the most disciplined contract manager in the division. I had saved this department hundreds of thousands of dollars in liability clauses alone. To hear my valid professional shock dismissed as being emotional was a calculated insult. It wasn't just a decision. It was an ambush. They had waited until the final hour, in front of HR, to strip me of my achievement. My chest tightened, making it hard to breathe. The betrayal wasn't just about the work. It was about the time. I had stayed late, missed family dinners, and worked weekends to ensure this transfer happened. Now, Tom was looking at me like I was a nuisance he needed to sweep away. "We expect you to be a team player," Tom added, his eyes cold. "Mara, hand over your digital files. Effective immediately." I stared at Tom, then at Chase, who was still fumbling with the binder tabs like a child with a new toy. The injustice of it vibrated in my bones. I reached into my bag and pulled out the encrypted flash drive that held the master files for the contract. For a split second, I thought about refusing. I thought about causing a scene, screaming, flipping the table. But I didn't. I took a slow, steadying breath. I looked at the $18 million contract that sat under Chase's inexperienced hands. I thought about the complexity of the compliance clauses, the delicate revenue triggers, and the specific legal language that only I understood because I had written it. I slid the drive across the smooth wood of the table. It made a soft hissing sound. "Here you go," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "Everything you need is in there." Tom snatched it up and handed it to Chase like a trophy. He thought he had won. He thought he had successfully stolen my work to pad his son's resume. But as I looked at them, a thought crystallized in my mind. My boss blocked my transfer so his son could take my role, and I delivered the contract that left the company without revenue. I pushed my chair back and stood up. "My name is Mara Dalton. I have spent 18 years working in corporate contracts. I don't say that to brag. I say it because in my line of work, details are everything. One wrong word, one missed comma, and a company can lose millions. I had built a reputation for being bulletproof. Clients respected me because I protected them. My colleagues respected me because I did the work. Until this moment, I had believed that hard work was enough. I believed that if I kept my head down and delivered results, the system would reward me. That was why I had stayed with this company for so long. I had endured Tom's micromanagement and his shifting moods because I saw a light at the end of the tunnel. That light was a transfer to the Strategic Development Department. It was a promotion, a raise, and most importantly, an escape from Tom. I had spent months preparing for it. I had groomed my replacement. I had organized my files. I had done everything right. As I walked down the hallway away from the conference room, my mind drifted back to where this nightmare began. I needed to remember the signs I had missed. I needed to understand how I ended up here, empty-handed. It started exactly 2 months ago. It was a Tuesday morning when the dynamic in the office shifted. I had a scheduled one-on-one meeting with Tom to discuss the final stages of the Meridian contract. I arrived at his office door, notebook in hand, ready to work. "Not now, Mara," Tom said, not looking up from his computer. "I'm clearing my schedule. We need to review the liability caps," I insisted gently. "The client is waiting." I said not now, he snapped. Then, his face softened into a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Actually, come in. I want you to meet someone." A young man was sitting in the corner chair, scrolling through his phone. He wore a suit that was too expensive for an entry-level salary and had the relaxed posture of someone who had never worried about paying rent. "This is Chase," Tom announced proudly. "He's joining the team. He's going to be shadowing you." Chase looked up, gave a half nod, and went back to his phone. "Hey," he mumbled. Later that afternoon, I overheard Tom talking to the VP in the break room. "He's got natural instincts," Tom was saying, his voice hushed. "He just needs the right platform to shine. I'm going to make sure he gets it." 2 hours later, Chase came to my desk. "Hey, I lost that file you gave me. Can you redo it?" Despite the annoyance of babysitting Chase, things seemed to be moving forward. A week later, the notification popped up in my inbox. The subject line read, "Transfer Approval, Strategic Development." My heart soared. I opened the email and read it 3 times just to be sure. It was official. My application had been accepted. I would be moving to the new department under the leadership of Angela Milbourne, a director known for her fairness and brilliance. I immediately forwarded the email to my personal account, saving a copy. Then, I received a welcome email from Angela herself. "Mara, I am thrilled to have you on the team," she wrote. "Your reputation precedes you. I know you're wrapping up the Meridian deal, but we are ready for you as soon as you are done." I felt a weight lift off my shoulders that I hadn't realized I was carrying. The stress of dealing with Tom, the frustration of his disorganized management style, it all had an expiration date now. I was finally going to be recognized for my worth. I walked into Tom's office to formally give him the timeline. He looked at the approval email printout I placed on his desk. He didn't smile. "We need to review the timing on this," Tom said darkly. "What do you mean, review the timing?" I asked, trying to keep my voice even. "The transfer date is set for the 1st of the month. That gives me 3 weeks to hand over the Meridian contract." Tom leaned back in his chair, tenting his fingers. "Mara, look at the big picture. The Meridian deal is the biggest thing this company has done in 5 years. We can't have you jumping ship right at the finish line." "I'm not jumping ship," I argued. "I'm moving down the hall. I'll still be available for questions." "It's not about questions," Tom said, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "It's about optics. The client trusts you. If you leave now, it might spook them. I need you to hold off just a few weeks. Just until the ink is dry." Something in his tone felt off. It was too smooth, too rehearsed. But I looked at his face, the face of the man I had worked for 5 years, and I tried to find the truth. I wanted the Meridian deal to close successfully. It was my baby, after all. "Okay," I said slowly. "A few weeks. But that's it." "Of course," Tom smiled. "I appreciate your loyalty, Mara." As I left his office, I saw Chase leaning against my cubicle wall, waiting. Chase was holding a stack of papers. My papers. He grinned as I approached my desk. Tom, said you could walk me through the contract structure this afternoon," Chase said. I sighed, sitting down and logging into my computer. "Okay, pull up a chair. Have you read the executive summary I sent you?" "I skimmed it," Chase shrugged. "Seems pretty standard. Lots of legal mumbo-jumbo." "It's not mumbo-jumbo, Chase. It's binding legal code," I said sharply. "If we get this wrong, we don't get paid." He waved a hand dismissively. "You worry too much. Besides, I'll be replacing you soon anyway, right? When Dad moves me up. I froze. What? You know, he laughed. When you move to that other department, someone has to take the reins. Might as well be fresh blood. I laughed it off, assuming he was just bragging. He had zero experience. There was no way Tom would put him in charge of an $18 million account. But later that day, I saw an outgoing email in the sent folder of the shared team inbox. Chase had emailed a junior associate at the client's office. He had used my email signature block. The pressure began to mount. The client, a massive logistics firm, came back with a heavy list of revisions. They wanted tighter deadlines and stricter penalties for delays. It was a critical phase of the negotiation. I stopped leaving the office at 5. I was there until 8, sometimes 9 at night, redlining documents, double-checking figures, and ensuring the language was precise. My eyes burned from staring at screens. Tom barely acknowledged my presence. He would breeze past my desk in the mornings, coffee in hand, and head straight to Chase's cubicle. I would hear them laughing, talking about golf or weekend plans. Meanwhile, I was drowning in work. Chase would occasionally hover over my shoulder while I typed. "Are you sure that's the right figure?" he would ask, pointing at a number he didn't understand. "Yes, Chase," I would say through gritted teeth. "It's the amortization schedule." He would nod sagely, as if he knew what that meant. Then he would go to the printer, pick up the documents I had just finished, and walk them into Tom's office as if he had done the work himself. Then, a notification popped up on my phone. An email from Angela. "Mara, just checking in. Is everything set for your transfer on Monday? We have your desk ready." I stared at Angela's email. Monday. That was 3 days away. Tom had told me we were delaying, but he hadn't given me a new date. I assumed he had coordinated with Angela. I walked into Tom's office. He was on the phone, but he motioned for me to wait. When he hung up, he gave me a tight, impatient smile. "What is it, Mara?" "Angela thinks I'm starting Monday," I said. "Did you tell her about the delay?" Tom's smile faded. "I haven't had a chance to connect with her yet. Look, we need you to hold off a bit longer. The client is getting jittery." "You said a few weeks," I said, feeling a knot of anxiety in my stomach. "My transfer is already approved. I can't keep pushing it back." Tom stood up, his voice hardening. "The company needs you right here, Mara. You are the only one who knows this contract inside and out. Unless, are you saying you don't care about the success of this firm?" It was a trap. If I insisted on leaving, I looked selfish. If I stayed, I was trapped. "I care," I said. "But I need a firm date." "Soon," he said, turning back to his screen. I went back to my desk and replied to Angela. Tom asked for a slight extension on the transition. "I will update you soon." Angela replied almost instantly. "That's strange. Tom told me last week that you requested the delay." The blood drained from my face. I read Angela's email again. "Tom told me that you requested the delay." He was lying. He was lying to me, and he was lying to Angela. He was playing us against each other to keep me trapped in his department doing the heavy lifting while Chase played executive. I printed Angela's email and marched back into Tom's office. I closed the door behind me. "You told Angela I asked for the delay," I said, my voice trembling with suppressed anger. "Why would you lie about that?" Tom didn't even flinch. He looked at me with a calm, maddening expression. "Mara, you're confused. I told her we mutually agreed that you needed more time. Maybe you misunderstood the timeline conversation we had." "I didn't misunderstand anything," I snapped. "You are blocking me." "I am managing resources," Tom said coldly. "And right now, you are a resource I need on the Meridian project. Stop making this personal." "It feels pretty personal," I said. "That's your perception," he replied. "Now, if you're done accusing me, I have a meeting." I walked out of his office, shaking. I felt cornered. As I passed the break room, I saw Chase. He was holding my contract binder, the master copy I kept on my desk. He was showing it to the VP, pointing at a graph I had created. The next morning, a flagged email arrived from the internal compliance manager. "Mara, we need clarification on Clause 14 in the latest draft. It looks like the indemnity protection was removed. We can't approve this without it." I frowned. I had never removed the indemnity protection. That clause was the safety net for the entire deal. I opened the document server and checked the version history. There it was. Edited by Chase Ridgely. Time: 4:15 p.m. He had gone into the live file and deleted a crucial paragraph, likely because he didn't understand what it did and thought it was redundant. Panic surged through me. If that version went to the client, we would be liable for millions in damages if anything went wrong. I rushed to Tom's office, printouts in hand. Chase edited the live contract, I said breathlessly. He deleted clause 14. We have to revert it immediately before compliance flags it to the board. Tom looked at the paper, then at me. Chase was just trying to streamline the language. He thought it was too wordy. It's legal text, Tom. It has to be wordy. I practically shouted. He put the company at risk. Lower your voice, Tom hissed. You're overreacting again. We'll fix it. It's a draft. Stop trying to sabotage him. Sabotage him? I was the only one saving him. That was the moment something inside me shifted. It went from frustration to cold clarity. I stopped arguing. I stopped trying to make them understand. They didn't care about the quality of the work. They only cared about the optics of success. I went back to my desk and sat down. I didn't fix the file immediately. Instead, I opened a blank document and started a log. I documented the conversation with Tom. I took screenshots of the version history showing Chase's edit. I forwarded Angela's emails to a private folder. I wasn't planning revenge yet. I was just a creature of habit, and my habit was risk management. I needed to protect myself. If the ship went down, I needed proof that I wasn't the captain. I worked quietly for the next 3 days. I fixed Chase's errors silently, but I kept the record of every single one. Then, on Friday afternoon, a calendar invite popped up on my screen. Subject: Contract Reassignment Discussion. Attendees: Tom Ridgely, Karen, HR, Chase Ridgely, Mara Dalton. My stomach dropped. This was it. The meeting room was cold. Tom sat at the head of the table, flanked by HR and Chase. It felt like a tribunal. Mara, Tom started, using that same fake polite voice. We've been looking at the department structure. We're going through a leadership realignment. I knew what those words meant. What does that mean for my transfer? I asked. It means, Tom said, that the strategic development role isn't the right fit for the company's current needs. We are postponing your transfer indefinitely. Indefinitely. The word hung in the air like smoke. And the Meridian contract? I asked, looking at Chase. It's a heavy lift, Chase said, repeating a phrase he must have heard Tom use. But I'm ready for the challenge. I think I can bring a fresh perspective to the closing. Chase will be the signatory lead, Tom confirmed. You will support him administratively until the deal is closed. I looked at Karen from HR. Who approved this change? My transfer was signed off by the Director of Strategic Development. Karen shifted in her seat. It was an executive decision within the division. They were stealing my promotion, stealing my project, and demoting me to an assistant for the boss's son. We are back in the present moment. The glass-walled room. The humming air conditioner. I stood up, smoothing my skirt. The flash drive was in Chase's hand. The binder was under his arm. They had everything. Tom looked at me, expecting tears or an argument. He wanted me to break so he could justify firing me later. Please enjoy the project, I said. I wish you all the best with the closing. Tom blinked, surprised by my sudden calm. Just grab your personal things, Mara. We don't want any distractions for Chase. I walked out of the conference room. I didn't go back to my desk to work. I took a pre-packed box from under my desk. I had packed it days ago, sensing this was coming, and put my plant and my frame degree inside. I walked toward the elevators. The doors opened, and Angela Milbourne stepped out. She looked surprised to see me with a box. Mara? She asked. Where are you going? Why weren't you at your onboarding meeting this morning? I stopped. The elevator doors started to close, but Angela put her hand out to stop them. Onboarding meeting? I asked. Angela, Tom told me my transfer was cancelled. He just fired me from the project and gave it to Chase. Angela's face went pale. Her jaw tightened, and her eyes flashed with a dangerous kind of intelligence. Cancelled? I never cancelled anything. I've been waiting for you in conference room B for 20 minutes. He told me it was an executive decision, I said, my voice shaking slightly now that I was speaking to someone sane. He said you knew. Tom never told us any of this, Angela said, her voice low and furious. He told me you were out sick today. She looked at my box, then at the elevator. Don't leave the building, Mara. Come to my office. Right now. I followed her. As we walked, her phone pinged. She looked at it and frowned. This is from the client, she said. They just received the final contract package from Chase. They're asking why the formatting is broken. She forwarded the document to me. I opened it on my phone. My eyes scanned the PDF on the small screen. It was the contract. But it wasn't the version I had prepared. It was an older version. A draft from 2 weeks ago. When Tom had demanded my files, I had given him the flash drive with the final perfect version. But Chase, in his arrogance, must have pulled a file from the shared drive instead of using the one I gave him. Or maybe he tried to make another edit and corrupted the file. This isn't the final contract, I told Angela as we entered her office. Look at the compliance attachments. They're missing. The compliance attachments were the heart of the revenue model. Without them, the company couldn't bill for overages. He removed them, Angela whispered, realizing the implication. If the client signs this, we lose the revenue triggers, I finished. The company will be doing the work for a flat fee. We'll lose millions. Angela sat down at her desk. She didn't call Tom. She didn't yell. She opened her email and started typing. Let them dig the hole, she said softly. Just then my phone buzzed. It was a notification from the project server. Chase had just sent another email to the client. Sorry about the mix-up. Here is the correct file. I checked the log. He had sent the wrong file. Again. 30 minutes later, the phone in Angela's office rang. It was the client's general counsel. Angela put it on speaker. Angela, the lawyer's voice was icy. We just received a contract from A. Chase Ridgely? It is incomplete, unprofessional, and frankly, insulting. Half the clauses reference appendices that don't exist. I apologize, David, Angela said smoothly. We are looking into it. I don't want you looking into it, the lawyer snapped. I want to speak to the person who built this deal. I want Mara Dalton. Where is she? Why is this kid emailing me? Angela looked at me. I stayed silent. Mara is currently unavailable due to internal restructuring, Angela said, choosing her words carefully. Then the deal is on hold, the lawyer said. I'm not signing a multi-million-dollar agreement with a junior associate who can't use a PDF editor. Fix this or we walk. The line went dead. Before Angela could speak, her office door flew open. Tom stormed in, his face red and sweating. You! Tom shouted, pointing at Angela. You're undermining me. Angela stood up slowly. She was shorter than Tom, but in that moment, she looked 10 feet tall. Excuse me. The client just called me screaming. Tom yelled. They said you told them the deal was on hold. That is my territory. Angela. Chain of command. He didn't notice me sitting in the corner chair until I shifted my weight. He froze, his eyes bulging. What is she doing here? Tom demanded. I relieved her of duty. You lied to me, Tom, Angela said, her voice deadly calm. You lied about Mara's transfer. You lied about the delays. And now, your son has sent a defective contract to our biggest client. It's a glitch. Tom sputtered. Chase is handling it. He has natural instincts. An audit is underway, Tom, Angela said. Tom went pale. The color drained from his angry face instantly. What? I initiated a forensic audit of the project files 10 minutes ago, Angela said. IT is pulling the logs. An hour later, I was sitting in a large boardroom. This time, the HR representative Karen was there, along with the CFO and the head of legal. Tom and Chase were sitting on the other side, looking like children called to the principal's office. HR placed a stack of papers on the table. The audit findings are conclusive, Karen said, her voice shaking slightly. She clearly hadn't signed up for this. Chase Ridgely accessed the master files and made unauthorized edits to legal clauses on 4 separate occasions. He also deleted the compliance history. She turned a page. Furthermore, we found emails from Tom Ridgely instructing IT to alter Mara Dalton's transfer status in the system without authorization from the receiving director. The CFO, a stern man named Mr. Henderson, looked at Tom. You sabotaged a promotion and endangered an $18 million asset to give your son a job he wasn't qualified for. Is that a fair summary? Tom opened his mouth, but no sound came out. HR turned to me. Mara, your notes and logs match the system history perfectly. You documented every error Chase made and every delay Tom fabricated. Then, she asked the question I had been waiting for. Would you still accept the transfer to strategic development? Wait, the legal counsel interrupted before I could answer. We have a bigger problem. The client is threatening to walk. We need to stabilize this contract immediately. He looked at Chase, who was shrinking into his chair. Chase, you are off this project. You are restricted from accessing any external client communications effective immediately. Chase looked at his dad, but Tom was staring at the table, defeated. We need a stabilization plan, the CFO said. We need someone who knows the deal. I know the deal, I said. Everyone looked at me. But I don't work for Tom anymore, I added. If I fix this, I do it as a member of the strategic development team. I answer to Angela. And I want that in writing before I open my laptop. The CFO didn't hesitate. Done. And, I continued, the client demanded a site visit from the architect of the contract. They want to see me. Arrange it, the CFO ordered. Tom, you will stay here. Mara, take the lead. I walked back into the conference room, the same one where I had been betrayed hours earlier. But the dynamic had flipped completely. I sat at the head of the table. Chase was gone, escorted out by security to clear his desk. Tom was sitting in the back corner, instructed to observe only. I dialed the conference line. The client picked up on the first ring. This is Mara Dalton, I said, my voice strong and clear. I have reviewed the files sent to you earlier. Please disregard them. They were draft versions sent in error during a system migration. Mara, the client's lawyer exhaled. Thank God. We were about to pull the plug. Are you back in charge? I am overseeing the finalization personally, I said. I am sending you the correct version now. You will see the revenue triggers and compliance attachments are exactly as we discussed last month. I hit send. Received, the lawyer said. Okay. This looks right. We can sign this. Tom made a small noise from the corner, a sigh of relief mixed with misery. I ignored him. I led the call for the next 20 minutes, answering every technical question without looking at my notes. I knew this deal. It was mine. After the call ended, the CFO walked in. He ignored Tom and walked straight to me. Excellent work, Mara. Can I have a word? We stepped into the hallway. Tom is being removed from supervisory duties pending a full investigation, the CFO told me quietly. The nepotism was bad enough, but risking the revenue? That's unforgivable. I nodded. I didn't feel happy, exactly. I just felt balanced. The scales had tipped back. Chase is being reassigned, he continued. Junior admin role in the archives division. Basement level. If he wants to work here, he starts at the bottom. No computer access. And my transfer? I asked. Effective immediately, he said. Angela is waiting for you upstairs. I walked back into the room to pack up my laptop. Tom was standing there, looking older than he had that morning. Mara, he said, his voice raspy. I just wanted to give him a head start. You know how hard it is these days. I looked at him. I thought about the late nights I worked. I thought about the years I spent building my career without a father to hand me a job. We all want to help our families, Tom, I said. But not by stealing from the people who actually do the work. I picked up my box. I didn't look back. The next morning, I walked into my new office. It had a window. Angela was there with a welcome coffee. Here's your formal offer letter, she said, handing me a thick envelope. We adjusted the salary. Since you saved the company $18 million yesterday, we figured you deserved a 20% bump. I opened the letter. The title read Senior Strategic Manager. I spent the morning finalizing the Meridian contract. I drove the physical copy to the client's office myself for the wet signature. When I handed it to the general counsel, he shook my hand. Glad they came to their senses, he said. We don't do business with amateurs. The revenue hit the company accounts by 2 p.m. The company was safe. My team was safe. And I was safe. Later that afternoon, I saw Tom in the hallway. He was carrying a box of his own. He wasn't being fired yet, but he was being moved to a smaller office, away from the decision-making power. He saw me, hesitated, and then looked down at his shoes as he walked past. In the end, justice wasn't a dramatic explosion. It was quiet. It was the sound of a keycard working on a new office door. It was the silence of a phone that no longer rang with Tom's frantic demands. Tom was demoted to a non-managerial compliance role. Ironically, the exact job he hated. He spent his days checking checkboxes on forms. Chase lasted 3 weeks in the archives basement before quitting. I heard he went back to school. HR rolled out a new, strict anti-nepotism policy the following month, dubbed the Ridgely Rule by the staff. I sat in my corner office, watching the city skyline. I had prepared for the worst, documented the truth, and stood my ground. I realized then that the most powerful thing you can do in the face of betrayal isn't to scream or fight dirty. It is to simply be so good at what you do that they cannot survive without you. I took a sip of my coffee. I didn't need revenge. I just needed the truth. And the truth did the rest.